Greetings, greetings, greetings. Today is Friday, September 11th. How you guys doing out there? My name is Ken Billions. The topic of today is the power of vice, the power of our vices, and I want to talk about that a little bit to use vices to know ourselves, to not be ashamed of our vices, and really get into the psychology of our vices. But before I do that, I want to say greetings. I appreciate you being here. I cannot do this if you didn't come, right? So we have a serious relationship going on here, right? There's no me without you, so I appreciate it. But again, today is September the 11th. Little quick story. I was 17 um, when September 11th happened, and I remember it. Someone called the phone and it was like, "Yo, turn on your TV." Right. So I was already out of school. I dropped out, went and got my GED. So while everybody was in school, I was asleep. And I just remember getting a call and someone said, turn on the TV. And I thought it was fake. It looked like a video game. It looked like a movie, right? I couldn't really believe my eyes. I didn't see anything like that in my life. But I remember it vividly, though. I remember September 11th vividly. I remember where I was. I was living in Newcastle, Delaware. It's 2001, yeah, 17. I just finished up. I just left Job Corps. So I remember it vividly. And it's crazy that so much time has passed. Wow. Anyway, I appreciate you guys being here. And today the topic is vice. And hopefully from this conversation, you could get a better understanding about yourself and you could come to terms with some of your vices because we all have them. So if you're watching me from Facebook, what's up? If you're watching me from YouTube land, how you doing? Um, my name is Ken Billions. If you have not met me before, greetings. And let me tell you a quick background how I got that name. My real last name is Brisbane, but that doesn't do anything for me, right? That's just the name I was given. So I converted that name into Ken Billions. Why? Now, being a billionaire is super hard. I may never get that, and I accepted that. However, I understand that we're in quantum and that a billion is the new thousandaire. What I mean by that is, as mankind, as we keep expanding in our consciousness, we keep expanding in numbers, and then certain numbers become obsolete. So, as we keep moving forward, tens, 20s, 30s, hundreds, even thousands, they're going to become obsolete, kind of like pennies do. So in a near distant future, the majority of the population will be millionaires and billionaires, and poverty will be someone making 250,000. I don't know how close that future is, but I see that on the horizon. So I wanted to make my name into something that was empowering to me, and you guys should consider that doing the same. No disrespect to the parents the name that your parents gave you, but if the name doesn't empower you and the name doesn't represent you as a person, then you might want to consider changing that. All right, but no disrespect to your parents. I don't ever want to get you to go against your parents. Okay. All right. So, what is Vice? Wait, before I do that, if you're on Facebook and you have top fan by your name, you need to do the extra now and become a supporter of this ministry, because what that does is it shows that you're buying into the things that I'm saying instead of listening to me for free. Now, if you have top fan and you keep coming back, then that means that I provide value. Okay, now fair exchange ain't no robbery. All right. So without you having that top fan, or without you having that supporter badge next to your name, what that tells me is that I'm hoeing for you, right? And you like it. So you'll keep showing up for the free 99, but and taking the game and running with it, but you don't see back into the ministry. Now that's something I don't condone, because I don't do that to anybody that I follow. I pay everybody, right? If it's valuable. Okay. So sidebar if you're on Facebook. All right. So the topic of today is vice. Okay. Now we got to get into what exactly vice is. So we're going to go to the etymology of the word vice. All right. And again, hopefully after this conversation, some of you guys come to terms with your vices. All right. And so why it's important to know why you do what you do. So you can stop blaming the system, or you can stop blaming your parents. You are what you are. And we live in a new age world where everything is about the higher self, the higher self. so much so that we don't understand our lower nature. Now, the funny thing is, we all come from lower nature because we were produced by sex. Using the bathroom is our lower nature, but the body must release, right? The time of our lives usually come from our lower nature, but we have become ashamed of our lower nature. And I understand because our lower nature puts us in positions sometimes to take extreme L's. But you are nothing without your lower self. That's why I call myself root chakra poppy. Root chakra poppy. So this is the etymology of the word vice. Let's get into it. Moral fault, wickedness. All right, it's a French word. All right, moral fault, wickedness, fault, failing, defect, irregularity, misdemeanor. Then it changes to the 12th century to vitium, which defect, offense, blemish, imperfection, in both physical and the moral sense. Okay. Look, peep this. Entertainment. It highlights entertainment. Very, very, very interesting. Entertainment could be considered a vice. But interesting words right here. Imperfection, blemish, offense, defect. Now, let's go right here to imperfection. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that we are perfect in our design. It's just different attributes in different areas of being human. Heads and tails is part of the same coin. Doesn't make it imperfect because the sides are different. Okay. And I think one of the things that we have, I think one of the problems that we have is that we don't know how to deal with our lower nature, whatever nature that is, right? Whether that nature is sex, whether it's drugs, whether it's violence, whether it's gambling, right? But our lower nature is nothing but, or our vice is nothing but a vehicle to travel to the place that we want to be for real, right? So my vices, I like rushes. I like dopamine. So anything that'll give me a dopamine high, I'm into it. And it could come from caffeine. It could come from drugs. It could come from sex. Those things are just the vehicle that I use to get where I'm trying to go, to feel this feeling. Now, if you've never really used drugs before, things like ayahuasca or street drugs or things, one of the things they do is they suppress your ego, right? So it opens up a gateway to find out who you really are. Now, what you do in that moment is who you really are. Now, you might not like what you see in that space, but that's you, okay? Especially if you're a very responsible person, especially if you're a person that is very reliable, very dependable, you go to work every day, you have children, you do certain things at a high level, and that comes with a lot of pressure. So you see when people have the opportunity to purge, they do it and they do it hard because the day-to-day grind of being a good mother, being a good partner, being a good friend, a son, a daughter, going to work every day, that shit is very, very, very stressful. Now, and a responsibility is not natural to the human being. These are things that we have to learn. Okay, someone has to tell us to be responsible. Someone has to tell us to take care of ourselves. Someone has to tell us to do X, Y, Z, because without that instruction, we wouldn't do it. And because of that, it puts a lot of pressure on us. It puts a lot of strain on us. So our lower nature begins to bleed out without our permission, and we don't know how to handle it. Okay, every last one of us has a primal self. It looks different, but each one of us have a primal self. And this is where you see a lot of the new age philosophy regarding the lower self. It's shame, right? You have some women that are straight whores and they're ashamed that they like what they like. The social pressure to be a lady, the social pressure to be a good woman, the social pressure to find a husband, the social pressure to keep her legs closed is very, very, very conflicting because she likes what she likes. Same with guys. Some guys are prone to violence, prone to gambling, prone to women. And that feeling that you feel in that space, you feel real shamed about it. So when people get that feeling, guess what they do? They run straight to church, or they run straight to Louise Hale, or they run straight to Les Brown, not to gain information because of shame. A lot of people have ran into the conscious community because of shame. You're ashamed at what your hands like to touch. You're ashamed what your feet go towards. But I'm here to tell you that you change one thing, you change everything. Now, the key is to use that vice for creative purposes, okay? And picking a time to let your lower nature be active. Now, that right there is a lot of responsibility. That right there, um, I don't recommend that unless you really, really sit with yourself and know how to and manage your vice, because it could kill you and it could kill others, or it can put you in a space of extreme regret because what you do, you can't get back, right? But to really, really know yourself, you're going to have to experience your vice, or you're going to have to let your vice be a vehicle to allow you to travel to the desire or the experience that you want to get to. Right now, some vices are, in my opinion, off limits. Things that are take consent away from an individual. So now your vice is now bleeding over to other people. So if you have a vice that robs other people of consent, children, women, any elderly, anybody, if your vice doesn't have consent involved in it, whatever it is you're doing, then you're out of line, right? And I believe that whatever comes back to you will be 10x because you're out of line. Because the thing about do without will, you have to be self-governing. You have to know autonomy. You have to be able to police yourself. You have to be able to know what your limit is and go right there, but not overboard. Okay. But you have to have consent involved. Okay. Or you are out of line. All right. So the vice, gambling, sex, drugs, you name it. The vice is nothing but a vehicle. The vice is what we use to get where we're trying to go in terms of deviancy, in terms of what would you consider shameful acts and shameful behavior. And it's only shameful because people are looking. If you knew no one was looking, then you would use your vice to take you to the places that you enjoy the most. Many of you, working is not the thing you enjoy the most. Being married is not the thing you do the most, enjoy the most, right? The thing you often do the most is the thing that activates your mischievous nature. The thing that a lot of women do the most is hoe. There's a lot of it sounds funny, but I'm being dead ass. There's a lot of girls that just, if you could go in their mind, all they think about is their whole stories when life was more fun. Now she's a mother, now she's a wife, and that's cool. But a lot of people only did that because people are looking. That's what you have to do. A lot of dudes, their best moments came from the street, right? Their best moments when they was fucking niggas up. Their best moments is when they was with the homies on the corner. That's their best moments. That's why you hear a lot of celebrities always reflect to the time where they were broke, right? Yeah, they enjoy the money, but the time where they were broke, it was a time that you were more free, you were more childlike. You didn't have the same responsibilities and social pressures that you do, right? So much is given, much is expected. We know this. So you got to be careful of the things that you ask for, because once you get them, now other things are off the table. Now, we heard of things like Bohemian Grove. We heard about celebrities, kinky parties and things like that. What you're hearing about it is civilians were there to witness what we consider shameful behavior. They would always talk about a Diddy party. They always talk about an Illuminati gathering where people just let their hair down, or eyes wide shut situations. Those situations are natural to human beings, but it's very hard to fathom things like that because we see the world through a religious lens. We see a world through morality, and where morality has come from, individual and cultural morality, it comes from human deviancy, seeing the effects of it, and then creating unwritten laws to govern ourselves. So when people get married, they if someone steps out of the marriage, we consider that cheating. Now, that came from human beings. Nature didn't create that design. Okay, that comes from human beings policing each other. Someone said, you know what? That's not right. That's not fair. He who has the gold rules. So if you have the gold, you control the laws. Okay, so morality is not universal. Okay, it has to be taught, and it's something that is placed from one human's mind to another human's mind to regulate the behavior of human beings. Because left to humans' own devices, everybody will go into their primal space, right? When you stand back and watch when people get money, they usually don't get books. When people get money without having it for an extended period of time, what is it that they usually run towards? They usually run towards what? Entertainment. They usually run towards what? Rushes and sex. They usually run towards things that you would consider a low vibration. Why? Why is that like that? Because the default behavior for every man and woman is a primal nature. We are animals, whether we like it or not. But there's a disconnect that we have with the rest of nature, where we have an involution that they haven't went through, to the point where we can self-actualize, and we can look in the mirror and say, wow, there I am. And we can make adjustments, and we can suppress base urges. Animals don't suppress their hunger, right? When they're hungry, they eat. When they want to have sex, they do it. But man, we can fast. We can suppress other characteristics about our animal body that the rest of nature can't. That's what makes us different. However, the majority of us are being here on this planet is an animal experience. And left to our own devices, that's the place that we like to go to, because it's free. It feels great, right? We only feel bad about our vices when other people find out about our business, right? So a lot of us keep our fronts up because, judgment, because of human acceptance. All right. So the etymology of the word vice is moral fault, wickedness. See, fault, failing, defect, irregularity, misdemeanor, offense, blemish, imperfection, in both physical and the moral sense. Mind you, I just was talking about morality and where it comes from and how morality develops. Morality does not come from what you call God. Because if we peel back the layers and look in the scriptures, all things unmoral that man does, the deities in the scriptures have done the same. The deities in the scriptures have killed people. The deities in the scriptures have removed people off their land. Okay, so morality doesn't come from no deity. In fact, man puts God in the image of his own mind. This is why every characteristic that man has, what you call God also has the characteristics. And this is why God can be jealous, right? How can a spirit be jealous? How can a supreme being be jealous? Well, the reason why God is jealous is because man created God. Now, understand what I'm saying. The concept of God. Man didn't create water. Man didn't create the Grand Canyon. Man didn't create air. So if you want to call something God, then you would consider the elements, the things that can't be created by man, the sun, the moon, the stars. That's something that's governed by something else. But the concept of God came out of human beings' mind. This is why everywhere you go in the world, the God matches the culture of the people. Even different branches of Christianity behave differently depending on the environment that you live. Southern Baptist is different than Northern Baptist. Okay? Christians in Jordan and Syria are not the same as Christians in Compton. Okay? You have Methodist Catholics. You have Protestant Catholics. Okay, so your approach to your deity is always going to resemble your environment and how you view the world. Okay, if you live by the water, then you'll have a water deity. If you live in the mountains, then you'll have a deity that resembles characteristics of elevation. If you live in the desert, you'll have a desert deity. The deity always matches the environment. All right. So morality does not come from what you call God. Morality comes from human beings agreeing on certain behaviors. Cheating on your husband or wife is only quote unquote wrong because humans say it's wrong, but not really. Because you see, left to your own devices, human beings want to be with each other. It's not a male thing, it's a human thing. So to assume that by nature, women don't have primal sexual urges, that's a lie, right? They have more cultural pressure to have sexual discipline. That's the only thing, right? Because they are told that with discipline, the incentive is you'll find a husband, right? And no one wants to be alone, okay? So it's coercion. It's the same way as people wearing masks outside. Hey, if you don't put a mask on, you're going to get sick. We don't know that to be true, right? So we'll say, you know what, young lady, if you want to find a husband, don't be fast. Don't do these things. So she's incentivized to practice sexual discipline because of the mob. It doesn't come from God. It doesn't come from nowhere in nature, because everything in nature is fucking, right? And everything in nature is loyal to its design. So some creatures mate for life because that's their design. The design. Some creatures have multiple partners throughout a lifetime because that is design. Each design in nature also exists in human beings. So you have some people that are naturally want to be with one person. That's their design. It doesn't matter what culture they live in, and it doesn't matter the education they receive. They just have a natural desire to be with one person. Now, that's natural to them. Then you also have men and women that naturally like to have other people involved. It's natural because it represents itself outside of humanity in animals as well, right? Okay, so the difference between our lower nature and an animal's lower nature is our lower nature takes us off track when we don't know how to police it, because a lot of our lower nature comes from fear. It's not the fact that we have these primal urges and desires. It's when we usually engage in them. So, share something about myself. If I have to make a big decision, if there is something important going on in my life that is kind of blurry, and let's say it's a level up, or it's a financial decision, or it's a decision about career, my vices start triggering because I don't have the answer in that space. So it's blurry. So my lower nature starts to rise to the surface. So I'm more prone to go into my dark spaces when I have real shit going on, because it's a fear to confront the real shit. Now I want you all to do an audit on yourself. Whatever your particular vices, whatever they are, when do they usually happen? Right? I know mine happens when I got to make a big move, right? And I go to a certain dark space because I got some real things popping and I don't have the answer. So this is the importance of mentorships and things like that, because some people don't know how to engage in their vice and then bounce back. And that's the thing about these vices that we have, is that when you engage in them, if you don't know how to police yourself, if you don't know how to practice full-scale self-government, then when you go to that space, you might never come back. A lot of people that dabbled in crack cocaine hit it one time and that was the end of their life. And they're just now recovering off the drug, and they're 60-something years old. Their life has passed them by. So you have to be real careful and real mindful where you allow yourself to play at. Because once you go certain spaces, there ain't no coming back. All right? You got to stay over there and you got to walk the full season out. You got to burn out on it. Okay? So that's when I start to get my vices. I start to feel unsure about my decision making. I start to feel unsure about my next move. And then I don't have anyone on my level to talk to, which is another thing that's important is you have scaled in your life when you start looking in your phone and you start looking in your contacts and no one has the answers for you because the people that used to give you information, you 10x on the information, right? You 10x on the information. All right. And you have now became the big homie's big homie. And now they have nothing for you. Right? Okay. Good question. So you're not born in sin. In fact, sin is an ancient deity. Look that up too. So sin is an ancient deity, right? So you're not born in sin. The example of Adam and Eve is an example of life and an example of knowledge. Okay, is when you gain knowledge, you become aware of, right? Time starts moving different. The more aware you get, the less time you have. Okay, this is why when you were little, the summer felt long as hell because you didn't know a lot. The more that you know, the more that you learn, the less time that you have, right? The more your sense of urgency is different, the more you're aware of your flaws and your imperfections, right? So we're not born into sin, right? We're not born into sin, okay? The only type of sin there is going against your own self. Because if self-preservation is the first law in nature, then when you go against yourself, that's sin. Now that's one thing that makes human beings unique and different than the animal kingdom. The animal kingdom don't do things to undermine themselves. Someone might say, well, what about roadkill? What about them on the... That's because they don't have depth perception to know that that car is moving 65 miles per hour. So they're not able to estimate things. All right. But no animal does anything to undermine itself. But man does. That's the interesting thing about us is that we can undermine ourselves. And when we're undermining ourselves, that's our vices because we don't know how to police that. You have to experience your vice. Each part of yourself has to know each other. They cannot be disconnected. You cannot be all good. And you can't be all bad. Good and bad are just polarities. Like hot and cold, left and right. Right? So let's call good the extreme and let's call evil the extreme. Right? You want to be able to balance, go back and forth. Right? So you never want to get to extreme good and you never want to get to extreme evil. You want to go as closest to each pole as possible in certain things. You know what I'm saying? So you want to go to as far as you can to good without going all the way to good. And I don't know if you ever heard this before, you want to go as far as you can to evil without going there. Now, what's evil? Evil is doing something that's premeditated, that's harmful. Now, what does that look like? What does that look like? There's a motto I live by that I learned from a friend a long time ago. Don't misuse, use, but don't abuse. Right? Don't misuse, use, but don't abuse. So when I say that you want to go as close as the evil pole as possible, maybe like 65, 70%. What I mean by that is mentally. When you go to full scale evil, it involves physical. Okay. To play mental games with people to get the things you want is fair. It's spinning, it's finessing, it's premeditated. But you use people, but you don't abuse them. Okay? It's a form of psychology, right? You're not necessarily doing harm to a person, but you are getting people to do something for your own benefit and your own agenda. Now, nothing is wrong with that because people are going to do that to you as well. But you don't misuse. You use, but don't abuse. And I'm sure you want to be used too, just not misused and just not abused. Now, the good scale, you want to go as far as good as you can without hitting the good max, meaning that to be nice is to be stupid, according to the etymology. You don't want to be a nice guy. You don't want to be a nice woman, right? You don't want to go full scale nice. You don't want to go full scale evil. You want to balance in between right here and go back and forth, right? You want to move that scale, never touching the wall though. You want to stay right in the middle of there. Now that's extreme balance right there, right? Don't be too good and don't be too bad, right? Now, again, mankind puts God in his own image. When you look at the God of the Bible do good and bad. The God of the Bible, it was okay to go to the Canaanites and remove them off their land. But then in the New Testament, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believe in him will not perish but have everlasting life. Right? So in the New Testament, God has a different type of attitude towards human beings. So before it was fire and brimstone, before it was flooding the earth, famine, pestilence. Now in the New Testament, he doesn't do none of that. Instead, he gives a burnt offering of which is example of his begotten son, right? So even in the Bible, when they say God is good, God is bad too. And I would argue God even touched the evil line. Because during the Noah's Ark story, people were flooded. The whole world was flooded, according to the scriptures, right? Now, we know these are allegories, and we know this is storytelling, but we use them to learn ourselves, right? We use them to learn ourselves. So the point is our vices usually occur when we don't have the answers, or when we're unsure about something, or when we're worried about something. This is when our vices usually happen. And this is why it's important to have people in your phone that represent a new season, right? That can handle you coming to them with a new set of problems. And it's messed up that we begin to outperform the people that gave us game before, right? So you look in your phone and you're holding on to relationships, but it's messed up because the information that you got from them, you have now leveled up and took it further. Now they're kind of no use to you a little bit. And it happens like that, where they don't have the answers for you at this moment because they're still on the level that they were when y'all first connected. Right? You've seen more, done more, tasted more, experienced more, laughed more, leveled up more. And what happens is it widens the gap between you and your old mentors or your old people that used to give you information. And they'll think you're changing, and they'll think you're acting funny, because they'll be like, yeah, I remember when I did X, Y, and Z for you. And this is true. They did come through in the clutch for you. This is true. They did hit you with some information. All those things are true. However, once you got the information and you found out what you needed to know, you took off like a rocket. So if you don't have people in your life at the moment that represent the new space that you desire to go in, that's when your vice is going to be amplified. It's different experiencing your vice when you're happy. We usually don't experience our vice when we're happy. We usually experience our vice, and remember, our vice is just the vehicle to travel to the desired feeling that we want to experience. Cocaine is a vice, ecstasy is a vice, sex is a vice, gambling is a vice. They are vehicles to that we use to get the feeling that we want. Okay? But we oftentimes don't do it happy. We usually do our vice when we're low, and that's bad because there is no bottom to it. You can keep going lower and lower and lower. And when you experience your vices when you're not in a good space, your bank account suffers, your family suffers, your career suffers, right? Your ambition and your health suffers because you experience your vice when you're not in a good space. I would argue that to really, really, really delve into our lower nature, we have to be living an elevated existence. So when you're living an elevated existence and you experience your lower nature, your floor is different. So when you go low, you don't go down here, you go right here. When you experience your vice at a lower state, you go right to hell with it. And there ain't no get back. You don't come back. You stay right there. You stay right where you're at. Vices, to fully experience them, are a privilege. It's a privilege to be a whore. If you're a woman that like to bounce around from different men, that's a privilege. That means all the shit in your life is together. But if your whoredom is because you were raped and you were molested, then that's you. Your position is low and you're going low. Your whoredom is not based on celebration. Your whoredom is not based on a happy moment. So you're living do what thou wilt. Your whoredom is coming from the fact that you have traumatizing experiences. And when you experience vice in that space, your vice end up owning you. Your vice now becomes the master. It controls you. It tells you what to do. When you experience vice from an elevated position, you move the vice around and you tell the vice what to do. I know from experience because I've traveled to different spaces within myself. You know how people talk about the planets and the Pluto is here. I do that within my mind, right? I don't think of nothing out there. There ain't shit out there. Everything is within man. That's how I live, right? So when I'm looking at the sun and the moon is nothing but different aspects representing me because I can't look within myself, so I look outwardly to understand myself. The sun and the moon is nothing but the heart and the brain, right? Planets moving, things like that, that's not out there, that's in here, right? So I know the depths and how low a human could go because I've went there. And then I've also experimented on myself from an elevated position. So I'm talking what I'm saying through experimentation. I've experienced with do what thou will. I've experienced of certain levels of deviancy. I've experienced dark places. I've experienced drugs. I've experienced jail. I've experienced homelessness. I experienced bad decisions, right? So I know. So I'm talking, not assuming. I'm talking from experimentation on myself. Now yours may look different, but again, you don't want to experience no vice when you're lower. When you tap into your vice, which is your lower nature. Now, what does that mean? What does we consider lower nature? Nasty sex is your lower nature because that goes past reproduction. It's pure hedonism. Gambling is lower nature, right? Because you're expecting money and you're not necessarily working for it. Okay. Drug use is lower nature, right? These are things that are considered your lower nature. All right. Um, but it's a mirror though, and you need to know yourself. There is no higher self without lower self. And some people are so scared of that mirror and what it looks like that they just totally new age out on some emo shit. You know, they're on their hippie peace and love, bro. There ain't no peace and love without knowing your lower nature, experiencing yourself uninhibited in different spaces to know your capability, to know what you're capable of, to know what your limits are. Okay? So you don't really know what you're capable of. You don't really know your limits because your buttons haven't been pressed. You haven't been in certain spaces. Right? So you don't know yourself. You know more about the government. You know more about society. You know more about culture. You know more about politics and gossip. You know more about sports. You know more about astrology and things like that outside of you, but you don't know yourself though. To know yourself is not just you in that happy space where you're smiling and you're taking the fire pictures and everyone is saying you're a great guy or a great gal. Nah, that's an aspect of you. There's another side of you that is the whore, that is the thief, that is the robber, that is the drug addict, that is the money hungry person, that is the opportunist, that is the finesser, that is the liar, that is the cheater. That's you too. No matter how Islamic you are. Only thing you're doing is using philosophy to suppress those base urges. But that's who you are. That's the real you, right? And when we see that real us come out, we are so ashamed and we are so appalled. And what I want to tell you is the real you is a dragon. If you can see your soul, if you can see your real self, it would frighten you. This is not who you really are. This is the social you to get along with people, right? This is the you, our language, our clothes, right? This is who we are for acceptance purposes because we're parents and we're part of a congregation or a political party, or we have to keep up certain appearances because of a job. But that's not who you are. Who you are for real is how you act when you do that coke or that ecstasy or that liquor or when you get on weed or when you get money in your pocket. See, those are the vehicles that now allow you to do your real thing, right? R. Kelly. R. Kelly would have had the same characteristics whether he had money or not. Now, remember I said of going the scales of don't be too good, don't be too bad? And when you're too bad, it goes into the physical aspect and it doesn't involve consent. So R. Kelly likes younger girls. Now, let me tell you something about the mind. Each one of us thinks sometimes some weird, twisted shit. Now, being able to govern yourself, you don't act on it though. Because the mind is filled with imagery, porn, violence, influences from songs, visuals from watching dope fiends on the corner. When we eat food, there's a bathroom for that. When we hear things and see things, there ain't no bathroom for that. And the bathroom for the things we eat and see is our mouth. It's our actions. Every last one of us thinks some weirdo, twisted shit because the mind does its own thing, right? You have to control your mind. Your thoughts can control you, right? To be able to control your thought and control your mind, that's a different elevation in a person. So when you take someone like R. Kelly, he could not control his deviant thoughts. All of us have deviant thoughts. If we could all travel into each other's head, we would be like, whoa, yo, this motherfucker's crazy. The difference is, and what makes you civilized is the fact that you don't act on that thought right there. Okay? So there are some lower aspects of ourselves that we should act on. And there are others that we should just leave in our head. And we're only and we're the only person that know we think them kind of thoughts. So when you look at a person like R. Kelly, money is the vice. Now, what is the vice? The vehicle that allows you to get to your deviancy. All right. So the stage is his vice. The money is his vice. He liked what he liked. He would like that whether he was rich or not. The riches just amplified it. Okay. Depending on what life you live, the vehicle just amplifies it. So look at having a lot of money or having good looks or drugs. Look at that as a Lamborghini or a Bentley. Okay. Now, I got some women in the chat. Y'all might not be honest, but y'all have fucked a dude because he had a nice car. Right? See, the car is the vice. Now, the more fire the car is, the more access a person has. The more big the butt is, the more access the women have. The more pretty the face, the more access you have. Same with your vices. The vice is just the vehicle. So the better the drugs, the better the vehicle you have to go into that space where some interesting things might occur. The bigger the ass, the better looking the face, the more money you have. Those are vehicles to get where you're trying to go in terms of the desire that you want. So for R. Kelly, it was singing songs. Look where his vehicle took him. Okay. Now the vehicle, if he wasn't rich, he could just been a hood star, right? And it wouldn't have been on full display like that. He would have still been the same person. Now he was supposed to control that thought because even though a 15, 16, 17-year-old girl, optically, she might look like a woman, but her decision-making process is not that of a woman. She doesn't have enough experience in the game to really know what's good for her. And if you're 30 or 40 and you're messing with her, she's 16, she's 7, her mind is not developed. Okay? So you're looking at the body and saying, oh yeah, she might be young when she's ready. She actually isn't. She's not ready. Physically, you're looking at the physical element. But what makes us men and women is not our physical body. It's our involution. Okay? It's our involution. Now, I'm only talking to that situation. So take me, for example. When I was 15, I used to sleep with older women. I thought I was ready. So I was 15, and sometimes the women will be 35, 36. That's what happens in the hood, right? 15, 16. And even to this point recently, I was like, I was ready for that. I was ready for that. But it made me look at women differently without me even knowing it. So the woman that I was with, who was a neighbor, she had a vice for younger dudes. And at 15, 16, I was filled out. So I didn't look like a little boy, right? I looked whole and full. But my mind wasn't ready to lay down with this woman because how it affected me years after. It increased my appetite and increased my urges. And it made my boundaries different. Feel me? So she was supposed to, in that situation, control the feeling that I was giving her. She was supposed to control her vice because I was physically ready And I humped on her like I was a full-grown man. But man is mind. So my mind was not able to really compartmentalize the experience that I was having with this older woman, because years after, I had a hard time processing that. So she couldn't suppress her biological urge to mate. Okay. Which is very hard to suppress biological urges. Okay. So our vices usually come out when we are at the cusp of a new season, because it's very scary at the top. Success is scary. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of expectation. That's why a lot of people run from it. Having things, being responsible is scary. Being dependable is scary, because you come through for one time. Now you have created a new normal. Now that's the expectation. People expect you to come through all the time. When you win once, people to expect you to keep winning, right? When you show a level of exceptional performance, people keep expecting you to perform on that same level, and it's very hard, right? So vices oftentimes kick in when you're right there, when you're about to make a fire decision, when you're about to go to a new level in a new space. That's when vices often kick in. Okay? You have to experience your vices. All right? You have to go to that space. Okay? But do not do it outside of celebration. If you drink, drink in celebration, not because you're depressed. If you smoke, smoke in celebration, because you finished the task for the day, right? You accomplished something that you wanted to do, right? If you do drugs, take it from me, don't do the drugs when you are at the bottom, because it's not going to give you the effect that you desire. In fact, you're going to keep buying more and buying more to try to get to a high that you're not going to get to on the drug. The high that you're looking for is only going to come after you get past fear, after you make the decisions that you need to make, after you go into your new season. That's where the high is going to come from. Right? So you have to experience your vice, because you're not going to really know what you call your higher self. In fact, I will argue what you consider as your higher self and living your best life is nothing but optics and pictures. It's not real. It's not concrete. It's wobbly, because all I got to do is poke you one time and your old characteristics are going to come out. So you can fool people with the memes. You can fool people with the one-liners of, oh, the universe, and that's a lie. Because the real you is a slut. The real you ain't nothing but a felon, homie. The real you ain't nothing but a stick-up kid, and that's what you like. That's what you get off on, and I get it. I get it. But you have to come to terms with that's who you are. I get to have conversations behind the scenes with a lot of women, fellas, and I'm telling you, you don't really know the woman that you're sleeping with. You don't really know your wifey like that for the most part. And if society leaned in a different way, so would she in terms of her behavior. Same with women. You don't know your dude. You don't know what he likes. You don't know what he's into, because you only allow one part of him to exist, the part that makes you feel special. And in order for him to make you feel special and to be a king for you at all times, he has to suppress something on the back end. This is why you start going through a lot of your dude's phone. You find out he's gay, or you find out he has a life that you never could even fathom, because the only thing you could focus on in a relationship is what he is to you, but not what he is to himself. All right. So that puts the pressure on a person a lot to be this thing for you every single day, right? To what happens when you don't want to be something to somebody just for like a couple days? Like, yo, you know what? I'm turning the codependency we have with each other off for a second. I don't want to be a boyfriend right now. I don't want to be a brother or a mother or a sister. I don't want to be a friend right now. I just want to think about me, right? I'll turn the thing back on in a second. But at this very moment, I don't want to be anything to anybody. You ever thought of that? Because when you have to be something all the time for people, that also makes you run towards your vice. And when you go this in that space, you hit it hard, man. You hit it so hard that that weekend you have, or that month you have, or that year you have, is the catalyst for the rest of your life. And that comes from the pressure of being. You can be everything to the world except yourself. And that's a lot of pressure to be someone's boyfriend or to be someone's wife, or you know how much pressure that is? Those things aren't natural. That's things we learn while we're here. So I suggest you take it easy on the people in your life, because behind the scenes, you could be forcing them into a world that you don't even know they're in because of your constant demand for them to be what that is to you, whatever it is. That's too much. And you might have to solve your own problems sometimes. That's too much. All right? So remember, the vice is just the vehicle, right? And everyone has a vice. You got body vices, you got mind vices. Sex is a body vice. Fighting is a body vice. Gambling is a body vice. Those are body vices. Mind vices are drugs. Those are mind vices. But another mind vice is thinking about things that aren't here yet, meaning too focused on the future and mind in the past. That's also a vice. That's also a vice. Not being present. That's also a vice. Okay? So we all have vices. Body vices, mind vices. We all have them. And we have to be real about them and be honest about them so we can move on. And you got to tell the vice what to do. You tell the car what to do. The car doesn't tell you what to do. You tell the car what to do. Right? So you have to be your vice. Now, mind you, I'm not telling you to jump off the roof or nothing. What I'm telling you is that lower nature has to exist. In fact, your career is dependent on it. Your writing is dependent on it. Your business moves are dependent on your lower nature. You have to activate your lower nature to really fully experience your higher self. Right? In order for you to focus on your higher self, which to me, a lot of times is a farce, because you ain't really living a higher existence. It's a front, right? Because you listen to Esther Hicks and Abraham Hicks and Louise Hale and Zig Ziglar and Bob Proctor, right? So you think you listen to that for 90 days and now you're fixed. When is the most time you're the most alive? It's usually in that club, standing on couches, going crazy. You love it, the feeling. Don't be ashamed of that. The problem is that you club when you're not supposed to. The problem is you choose to do that when you do have obligations to be a mother and father. The problem with that life is you do that and your money not right. Okay, so $1,000 tables does have an effect on you, right? So I'm not telling you not to experience it. What I'm saying is get your shit in order first before you experience your vice. So when you take yourself to a lower space, you hit here instead of the floor. Okay? So make sure you are not experiencing your vices when you are at your lowest state, whatever that vice is. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So I'm gonna play a video and then we'll get out of here after the video, right? And This is my Cash App. I'm putting it in the chat because I hope y'all Vice is not listening to free shit. I hope that ain't your Vice. Oh, my nigga Ken is online. Let me take this nigga game and live my best life and just tell that nigga thank you. No. No. Thank me with $1. That's how you thank me, right? Because I put it back into the ministry. But let me share my screen real quick. Oh, one second. I messed that up. I know how it be, right? And I don't speak on it much, but it's top fans. It's people that been in my chat for years. Never shot me nothing. Yo, Ken, you the truth. Ken, yo, I done leveled up. Yo, that's great. That's great. That's fire. And that's what we do this for. But you out here paying somebody though. And they usually haven't provided more value than me. But you'll pay them. Now listen. I know we talking about vices, but I don't hold for you though. I'm not gonna be your game mule. I'll shut this shit down. You know what I mean? Nah, but so we're gonna listen to this video and then we're gonna get up out of here. Right? Make sure you follow me on IG, and the number to the hotline is right there. That's a paid line. It's not free to talk, right? So let's listen to these thoughts real quick. Okay, my screen looks like it froze because I'm sharing it. If it froze, I gotta come out and come back in. 1 second. It did this the last time. So I'm gonna come out and come back in. 1 second, y'all. Ah, there I am. There I am. You guys see me or no? No? I'm back. Am I in the chat? Okay, there we go. Okay, let me get my screen together. Get my screen together. 1 second, y'all. There we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. All right. So that don't stop shit. We right back at it. Thank you guys for staying, man. Thank you guys for staying. You guys are the best. You guys are the best. So let's get into this video. They can't shut shit down. Let's do that. So we're gonna play the video and then we're gonna go. And it's on the topic. And this video is entitled Fear of Greatness. Fear of Greatness. Now it adds on to what I was talking about of when we experience our vices. We usually experience our vices when we are in a low state. All right. So let's do it.
The impetus that makes you fly is our great human possession. Everybody has it. It is the feeling of being linked with the roots of power. But one soon becomes afraid of this feeling. That is why most people shed their wings and prefer to walk and obey the law. The 20th century psychologist Abraham Maslow was convinced that within us all exists an impulse to achieve greatness and an urge to move toward what he called our highest possibilities. Few among us, however, achieve anything of great worth. While there are various reasons for this, one of them, according to Maslow, is simply that we fear our greatness more than we desire it. We are generally afraid to become that which we can glimpse in our most perfect moments. We enjoy and even thrill to the godlike possibilities we see in ourselves, and yet we simultaneously shiver with weakness, awe, and fear before these very same possibilities. Maslow called this fear of greatness the Jonah complex, in reference to the biblical character Jonah, who attempted to flee from the fate bestowed on him by God. In this video, we'll investigate the psychology behind this fear and examine how we can overcome it. In his book Art and Artist, Otto Rank argued that human beings are driven by two fundamental fears, a fear of death and a fear of life. Fear of death, according to Rank, is not merely a fear of our physical extinction. We also fear a type of psychological death which occurs when we conform so fully with societal norms that we lose our individuality. This fear, according to Rank, motivates us to differentiate ourselves by actualizing the potentials which make us unique. It drives us to exist in the Latin sense of the word, that is, to step out, stand forth, emerge, appear. Standing out too much, however, can stimulate feelings of loneliness and isolation. The more we individuate, the more we lose the comforting protection of the crowd, and it is this fear of standing alone which Rank characterized as the fear of life. This fear, Rank argued, drives us to reestablish a greater connection with society via conformity and to reject much of what makes us unique. The life of each person alternates between the impulse to individuate, driven by the fear of death, and the impulse to conform, driven by the fear of life. Between these two fear possibilities, he wrote, the individual is thrown back and forth all his life. For most of us, the fear of life predominates over the fear of death. We are more afraid of standing out, of daring to be different, than we are of relinquishing our individuality. This analysis of Rank's suggests that at its root, our fear of greatness is a fear of life, a fear of standing alone and of separating ourselves from the masses. For as Nietzsche so often liked to remark, the concept of greatness entails being able to be different. But a fear of life is not the only thing inhibiting us from actualizing our potential. Colin Wilson, one of the most prolific authors of the 20th century, suggested that an insignificance neurosis permeates modern society, acting as an additional barrier to the cultivation of one's greatness. Wilson observed that much of 20th century thought was dominated by what he called the unheroic hypothesis, which he defined as the sense of defeat or disaster or futility that seems to underlie so much modern writing. In answering the age-old question, is man more akin to a god or a worm, he thought the modern age instilled in the individual a belief that we are much closer to the worm, thus helping explain the average individual's tendency to accept a life far below their potential. Abraham Maslow, a friend of Colin Wilson's, came to very similar conclusions. Maslow made a habit of asking his students who among them would write a great novel, or become a great leader or composer, and discovered that, generally, everybody starts giggling, blushing, and squirming until I ask, if not you, then who else? Which of course is the truth. If you deliberately plan to be less than you are capable of being, then I warn you that you'll be deeply unhappy for the rest of your life. You will be evading your own capacities, your own possibilities. Maslow thought the anxiety displayed by his students was the result of an inability to fathom the godlike possibilities within for too long, without succumbing to the fear that such arrogance could lead to unhealthy delusions of grandeur. As a result of this fear, people tend to the opposite extreme and view themselves as more analogous to a worm, incapable of achieving anything of significance. Maslow, however, believed that both extremes, seeing oneself as a god or a worm, were equally detrimental. He therefore advised we find the golden mean or middle way. To overcome our fear of greatness, we must learn to move boldly towards our goals, while simultaneously maintaining humility in the awareness that we are all, after all, human, all too human. Or as Maslow explained, for some people, this evasion of one's own growth, setting low levels of aspiration, the fear of doing what one is capable of doing, voluntary self-crippling, are in fact defenses against grandiosity, arrogance, sinful pride, hubris. There are people who cannot manage that graceful integration between the humility and the pride, which is absolutely necessary for creative work. To invent or create, you must have the arrogance of creativeness, which so many investigators have noticed. But of course, if you have only the arrogance without the humility, then you are in fact delusional. You must be aware not only of the godlike possibilities within, but also of the existential human limitations. If you can be amused by the worm trying to be God, then in fact you may be able to go on trying and being arrogant without fearing delusions of grandeur. This is a good technique.
Alrighty, everybody. So that's it. right? Rewind the video, get control of your vices. You know what I'm saying? Pick and choose um, what you let people see. Don't let people see.
Can freedom become a
One
burden
second.
too heavy for man to bear?
Don't let people see everything. Don't let people see all sides of you. Yo, all right. So until the next time, I love you guys. My IG is right there. Let's be IG friends. Hit the hotline 888-565-8734. Also, you can become a member at kenbillions.com. Membership is 30% off. Just put in the promotion code Coin Gang. Make sure it's Coin Gang for 30% off. Also, the affiliate program that if you recommend people, if you're a member and you bring on someone else as a membership, you get 30% commission for that. And as long as they're a member, you also get a reoccurring fee. So just imagine if you got 100 people, right? So that's just a way for you to make money from being a member to Coin Gang Ministries and using the affiliate link and things like that. Okay, until the next time, yo. Keep them vices in order, yo. Peace.